quality public television is made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC-TV.
A new highway spending proposal has rural and urban lawmakers talking. Some House Republicans target sex selection abortions, but not without controversy. We've got a full story, and Senate Republicans say it's time renewable energy companies prove they can make it without state support. Hello, I'm Kelly McCullen. Thanks so much for watching. A House committee discussion this week revived the debate over abortion policy. Some House Republicans say it's time to ban abortions based on gender selection. But pro-choice advocates say they do not believe this bill is as straightforward as claimed. The House moved new abortion regulations this week. Supporters are proposing a sex selection abortion ban and say a majority of North Carolinians and even some pro-choice groups agree with their position that no unborn child should be aborted because the mother wanted the opposite sex.
We looked and said, well, if a predominant number of people seem to agree, I even heard that Planned Parenthood National seemed to agree that the idea of doing an abortion for the primary purpose of sex selection was not a good idea, we thought we'd go ahead and make it not permissible in North Carolina.
House Bill 716 would hold doctors liable for providing a sex selection abortion. It would not target the women who seek one. Doctors would be fined from $10,000 to $100,000 for confirmed violations. Spouses, parents, and guardians of a woman who receives a sex selection abortion could sue the doctor, whether or not the patient wants to sue. Opponents say they don't believe this bill is as straightforward as simply banning sex selection abortion.
96, I believe 95 or 96% of them are done in the first trimester when gender is not known. So I just believe that there's another purpose for this bill. Again, we're just creeping up on ultimately banning legal abortions in our state.
A doctor's accountability and liability would be assessed based on what the doctor may hear or may know in talking with a potential abortion patient.
If the doctor doesn't know, the doctor will not be held liable under this bill. But if the doctor knows that the woman is coming there primarily to perform the abortion because of the sex of the child, then the doctor is liable.
Other advocates say this bill cites sex selection abortions that happen outside the United States, and those issues may not apply to our domestic U.S. social debate on abortion. They suggest this bill might be racially motivated and could target immigrants from countries plagued by sex selection bias. Gina Dillon says she was adopted from South Asia and raised in North Carolina. She came to speak against the bill.
If you're going to put a bill that references those populations here in North Carolina, I can only assume that you are referencing other ethnicities and hoping
South Asia in your instance.
Right, for my instance it's South Asia, and in India this is actually, son preference is a real problem, and it's rooted in gender inequity, and the way to solve it is to deal with gender stereotypes.
My daughter was adopted from a country where women were not favored. And so therefore, when her mother was unable to get an abortion, she gave birth to her, and I adopted her because they couldn't adopt her in the country. So this in no way is intended to discriminate against immigrants.
When abortion issues and bills are discussed in the North Carolina General Assembly, it's almost guaranteed to get heated, and this week was no exception. As sex selection abortion ban supporters say, their intention is clear and their bill is easy to read. But opponents believe every step towards more abortion restrictions is a step towards outlawing them. The Senate gave final approval to a bill called Kaylee's Law this week. Kaylee's Law requires adults to report missing or abused children, even if it's merely a suspicion. Local social services directors must also tell state authorities if a local report comes in.
Failure by a director of social services to notify the State Bureau of Investigation of a report of sexual abuse of a child in a child care facility is a new offense.
A House Judiciary Committee is considering but hasn't yet endorsed GPS tracking for domestic violence violators. Representative Donnie Lambeth says expanding law enforcement tracking isn't as big a deal as before because most of us are carrying cell phones, which can determine your location. This bill would let police and domestic violence victims know when a violator has moved too close.
The device would indicate the defendant's location to the aggrieved party and the local law enforcement when the defendant is near or at any prohibited location.
The House is making it tougher on people abusing the 911 system. Guilford County Representative John Faircloth says a local judge told him he couldn't be tough enough on the defendant convicted of abusing the 911 system.
We've heard stories of calls coming continuously from the same person for quite a few times, and you can imagine how dangerous that is for an emergency call center to have to deal with that type of thing.
House Republicans say the agreement where community college students can easily transfer some core credit hours into the university system is not working. The result, they say, is wasted credit hours, and for some of these lawmakers, lost tuition payments that hurt middle and working class constituents. A bill to ensure credit transfers easily passed the House this week. With this opinion among some lawmakers that state universities may not be giving enough credit to community college credit hours, House Bill 903 would revisit a law first passed in 1995.
18 years later, very little progress has been made in getting the university system to accept community college credits.
House Majority Leader Edgar Starnes says only English class credit hours universally transfer from a community college to a UNC system campus.
The original intent of this legislation was to allow students to take core subjects such as English, math, science, and history at the community college and then have these subjects transferred to the university of their choice.
But university system representatives testify that they have not heard of any widespread campus refusals to accept community college credit transfers.
My understanding is that these agreements have been hammered out over years. There are agreements in place. We hear from time to time anecdotes that they're not being pursued and agreed upon, but we haven't heard the types of challenges that were mentioned here.
Guilford County Representative Marcus Brandon says his community college credit hours would not transfer to the university system, but he says different UNC campuses feature academic departments of differing strengths, and there can be no guarantee community college classes could prepare a student for a strong university academic department.
Just because you come out of community college does not necessarily mean that you're at the level of work for that particular institution. But you're right, I did go in with the whole notion that all of my credits were going to be transferred, and they did not.
That's the purpose of the articulation agreement, to make sure that the standards for the course credits are the same at the community college as they are in the university system.
The Marcus Brandon comment raised the discussion of community college studies in general. Are they, quote, good enough to compete and compare with a university?
I've heard a couple people mention that their standards weren't high enough, and if that's the case, isn't that a separate issue that maybe we need to we have some remediation work to do at the community college level?
The educational standards in our community college system is as high as anywhere in the nation.
Other lawmakers and community college representatives consider non-transferable college credit hours a middle-class pocketbook issue.
Most of our students are working students. A lot have families. If they have to take the courses over, then they're paying for that. And they're also slowing down the process of getting through the system and getting where we want them to be, which is in a job.
Almost 18 years worth of people who have spent money at the community college, spent time at the community college, and here it is 18 years later, and we're still trying to work out the kinks.
While the university system says there are no widespread problems with community college transfers, bill supporters say there are challenges. And that 18-year-old law, they believe, has done little to make obtaining a four-year university degree easier. A House Judiciary Committee has endorsed a state immigration bill that cracks down on illegal immigrants but makes it easier for immigrants to get driving privileges. The Reclaim Act focuses on a restricted driver's permit that immigrants with temporary papers could receive. It would be recognized by North Carolina and would prevent police from running immigration checks on these cardholders. But the bill restricts other forms of ID.
I've seen over in Winston-Salem there's another type of card the local organization is trying to put out called a change card. And with similar things like that, we cannot have as a state 15 or 20 or 30 or an indefinite number of spontaneously generated cards that are going to try to function as official IDs in the state.
State law banning minors from buying tobacco could soon include digital cigarette products. Senator Tom Goolsby's bill would prevent minors from buying e-cigarettes and all related products. It would require state health officials to regulate e-cigarettes, but some Democrats say they really don't want to see the burden placed on state officials.
There are some problems, if we could work out, would be protection for those children, but not create a new product which is under the auspices of the health people.
It's sold online, it's sold in stores, it's currently unregulated. This bill you could look at as a first step, if it need be, in order to start regulating this product and protect our children.
The House approves new legislation to protect North Carolina's right-to-work laws. House Bill 872 would void any contract provisions that require the contractor or subcontractor to hire union labor. It would exempt federal government contracts.
It deals with business-to-business transactions, and it just makes sure that one business can't require another business to use unionized labor to further protect the right-to-work status in North Carolina.
The law we're about to pass is already covered by federal legislation. The National Labor Relations Act already precludes contracts that require only union workers.
The State Department of Transportation authorizes many state contracts, of course. Some House members say road projects are often politically based, and they want data analysis to determine how and where infrastructure funding is spent. The House Transportation Committee began hearing details of legislation that could change how North Carolina spends money on roads and infrastructure.
The idea is to refocus to more strategic priorities in building roads. So let's build the roads we need instead of the ones we can fund. And let's not worry about the silo programs, but accept we're dealing with transportation, and that may include rail, it may include bridges, it may include airports.
The House bill would change the formula used to prioritize road construction projects. A new focus would be on need and economic development. That would affect everything from congested multi-lane highways feeding Charlotte to rural dirt roads without much activity, but still awaiting their first paving.
In the western part of the state where I live, we have counties that have a lot of miles of unpaved roads. But it says there's going to go to a statewide prioritization. How do you prioritize statewide unpaved roads across the state?
Right now the money's more or less spread out everywhere. Everybody gets to name their 10 worst roads and they're all paved. And if you've got 12 roads and you pave 10, and then Burke County's got 120 roads and you pave 10, does that make sense? Wouldn't it make sense to pave more roads in Burke County?
Dare County Democratic Representative Paul Tyne says there are parts of this state carrying economic potential if infrastructure were built first. But to make counties prove their economic activity as a requirement for transportation funding would simply shift money out of the rural areas to the urban counties.
The real competing political issue is untapping economic potential versus speeding up highways access to economic centers.
The Transportation Strategic Plan legislation will visit a few more House committees before it could receive a full House debate. The House is endorsing a new Government Efficiency Committee. The Standing Committee of Non-Legislators would review all state agency operations as well as study how these agencies are implementing their budgets. The House also passed another bill to put some teeth into how lawmakers address official state audits. House and Senate Appropriations Committee members would be required to meet within 90 days of a state audit's release. They'd review the findings and consider legislation that could not be stopped because of bill filing deadlines. The Senate considers the bill next. The House is backing a proposal preventing local governments from regulating what seeds and plants a farmer may use. Some counties across the United States prevent the use of genetically modified seeds to protect against cross-pollination with organic farms. This bill would give the North Carolina Department of Agriculture all control of seed and plant regulation throughout North Carolina.
This stuff cross-contaminates. You can't control the air. It drifts and contaminates your product. And as a result, these counties have enacted ordinances that have prevented GMO foods in their counties.
Actually, this bill does absolutely nothing to harm organic farming. I hope the discussion that we had in committee the other day, I thought that was clearly understood.
The House Agricultural Committee considered legislation to reimburse farmers who lose land use because of government regulations. State environmental officials are warning this bill could carry a few unintended consequences. They say, for instance, insurance coverage could trigger farmer reimbursement because flood insurance policies can restrict farming use on floodplains. Some lawmakers believe local governments could ultimately pay claims caused by state and federal regulation. The full House passes new wind farm regulations. Land near Wayne County's Seymour Johnson Air Force Base is considered prime for wind energy, but legislators worry a wind farm could hurt military flights. This bill would force any wind farms to vet their plans with nearby military base leaders.
If you look at what's happening in the future on encroachment on military bases across the country, and then knowing that we're experiencing, well, in 2014-15, we'll be experiencing BRAC. This bill right here will ensure that our state remains the most military friendly in the entire country.
House efforts to repeal state renewable energy mandates met resistance, but a Senate proposal doing much the same is moving forward. Some conservatives say power customers pay higher bills because power companies must buy more expensive alternative energy. Others say the mandate is no burden to customers and it creates billions of dollars in economic activity. Some Senate Republicans are proposing a 10-year phase-out of renewable energy mandates that are placed on in-state electricity producers. By 2023, these companies would be required to prove that 12% of their electric output comes from renewables. Davie County Senator Andrew Brock proposes capping that amount at 3% for the entire next decade, then drop the mandate entirely. He says alternative energy companies have had enough years and state protection to prove financial viability.
And if these technologies were developed and progressed the way they were promised, then the sunset date and the cap should not matter, because the generation supply companies will go with these companies.
The Brock proposal would require that customer rates be broken down on monthly bills.
It requires the cost recovered for the REPS requirement to be separately stated on customer bills and identified as a special surcharge for green energy.
Senate Democrats say this state mandate is nurturing a clean technology sector that would not be here otherwise. It's worth billions of dollars, they say, and thousands of North Carolina jobs.
We need to do what was originally envisioned in this state. But when we abandon our efforts and we create commercial uncertainty in the marketplace, particularly when this is a sector of the economy that has grown during the recession and which has been good for this state, it's bad public policy.
Rural county Republicans, like Sampson County Senator Brent Jackson, say renewable energy laws were forced on farmers last decade, and they've made it work. Now he's accusing the state of flip-flopping after farmers have made huge investments in renewable energy creation.
They were smart enough to take that and start figuring out a way to make the poultry science work in this thing, the wood pellets try and work. The swine industry has done extensive work in trying to make this work on lagoons. And now we're going to try and change the policy. I mean, these are entrepreneurs, in my opinion.
It's a Senate debate revolving around impressions of what is best for North Carolina's economy. Should this mandate support a new clean technology sector and create jobs? Or would more jobs be created if electric bills were possibly lower and energy sources were based on the lowest price?
What we've gotten in 5 years is $1.7 billion invested in North Carolina, 22,000 new jobs.
If you talk about small businesses, the low cost of energy could be significantly improved, Senator Stein, by allowing us to utilize energy at a low cost and not subsidize the high cost end. When it's ready to come forward, then it should be utilized, and that means when it can come out with some form of competitive pricing.
A similar but not identical bill has stalled in the State House for now, but the Senate moved its version to the Commerce Committee, where it will receive more debate. A bill to increase funding for coastal dredging cleared the Senate this week. Short boats would pay a $25 state fee, with longer boat owners being assessed a $50 annual fee. The bill would also shift $6 million from the Highway Trust Fund because boat fuel taxes feed the Highway Fund.
The money that's coming out of the Highway Fund, that is 1/6 of 1%, and that really tries to recoup some of the dollars that are spent for gas on boats at the pump.
The full House could authorize a zero-tolerance alcohol policy for first responders. Representative Jeffrey Elmore says public school bus drivers face charges for any on-the-job alcohol presence. He says this rule should cover other public service drivers.
What this does is adjust that statute to incorporate ambulances, EMS vehicles, firefighting vehicles, and law enforcement vehicles after consuming alcohol.
Wake County Democratic Representative Deborah Ross is resigning her seat to take a new job. Representative Ross will become general counsel of the Triangle Transit Authority. She leaves office in mid-June. Former State Representative Greer Martin is expected to replace her. Governor Pat McCrory sat down with me earlier this week for our nightly show, North Carolina Now. We discussed some big-ticket issues facing North Carolina in early 2013. Here's part of that interview. Define tax reform. Can you just lower rates and get rid of the deductions and call it reform, or do we need to see something structural, like the end of a tax structure?
I think tax reform would include three major objectives. One is to be competitive with our neighboring states, especially with regards to income tax and corporate tax, which are impacting our recruitment more than anything else. The second is to reward productivity as opposed to punishing productivity. And the third is to close some loopholes, some that Democrats put in and some Republicans put in, even in the past 2 years, that I think are unfair and need to be closed for fairness and to ensure that we get the proper revenue into the state.
More consumption-based taxes.
I think consumption is more of an argument. I'm more of a consumption-based advocate as opposed to punishing productivity and income. Because when you punish productivity and income, the people will move. They'll become less productive. And we're trying to have just the opposite economic environment in North Carolina.
Voter ID passed the House. We'll see what happens in the Senate. The key word, strict photo, key phrase, strict photo ID. How do you feel about strict photo ID as part of a comprehensive package?
Well, I think photo ID will be definitely a part of the package. I think strict is actually less strict than was being talked about a year ago. I mean, allowing a student ID, allowing a driver's license, allowing corporate IDs, company IDs, I don't think are strict. I think it's common sense. We're just verifying that the people on the ballot, on the voter registration card, is the person who's actually voting. It's to protect the integrity of the voting system in North Carolina.
Watching the school debate, gun control versus school security. I've seen other states, other governors go for the gun control route. Here I've not heard much about gun control, but I have seen you start the center with Kieran Shanahan, not to mention the Brian Holloway bill, which would be what, guards, counselors, and panic buttons. Right. We'll see how that bill turns out. What happened in North Carolina that the gun control advocates never got the traction it doesn't appear that they got in other states?
I don't know. Listen, I've really tried to concentrate on the economy, the efficiency of government, and education. And that's where I'm focusing. I'm trying to tell you the truth. I'm trying to get off the liberal and the conservative social issues and concentrate on the things that people are worried about most, and that's the economy. But I do care about school safety, and that's why we've set up this wonderful program where we're having 8 community-wide meetings across the state to find out how best we can protect our young kids when they come into our schools. And until I get that report, I think it would be foolish for me or the legislature to introduce new legislation.
School reform and school funding, do you see that as of course it's an economic issue, but do you see it as one of those core issues, or do you dabble into social experimentation when you talk about changing our public schools and how they run and how they
we need to change our whole education system. And you know, I put together, the education cabinet had their first meeting in 3 years. The governor actually met with the head of the university system, head of the 2-year college system, the superintendent of schools, and the head of the private college system, and the head of pre-K. First time in 3 years. And I've given them clear objectives as chairman. We're going to set up a vision and a brand for North Carolina education. We're going to start sharing resources. We're going to start sharing budgets. And we're going to put technology in our schools and share that technology. Those are just some basic things that we haven't been doing. We've had silos in education in North Carolina. Good people, some great schools, but we haven't been working together in an efficient and effective way, especially in which we're thinking about results. My goal is to get kids jobs once they graduate and make sure they have the talents and the knowledge to get jobs in North Carolina. And right now there's a disconnect. We have the 3rd highest unemployment rate in the country, and yet we have employers who say they can't find qualified applicants. That's a disconnect between education and commerce that we have to bring together.
Economic development, there's a lot of policy here, and a lot of folks just don't understand it. They do understand incentives. MetLife came, they're getting a nice package, but they're bringing jobs down here. These companies coming in, are they generally bringing new jobs in, or are they just relocating the workers they got from New Jersey? How does that work, and how do you envision it working?
Well, it's a sad commentary. Frankly, a lot of businesses that are growing in our economy today, which is very stagnant, is stealing customers from someone else, and that's happening in government too. I mean, I took a little quick trip to Chicago just the other night. I did it under the radar screen while Governor Perry let it be known, but you know, I'm out there trying to get businesses from Illinois or from California or from New York to come to North Carolina, and I think it's going to be a combination of them bringing new people, which will help our real estate market and our construction jobs, but also growing jobs within North Carolina. So I think most jobs, that companies that we're trying to recruit to North Carolina, you're probably talking about 30% of the people being transferred, and the other part will be growing from within, which is, I think, a pretty good match.
Governor Pat McCrory, I appreciate you letting our team come in your office and give you an interview.
It's an honor to have you here. Thank you very much.
Find us online this weekend on Facebook, facebook.com/legweek. We chat all the time using Twitter. Follow us at legweekinreview, and our email address for your show comments is legweek@unctv.org. We love hearing from you each weekend. Thank you for watching.
Quality public television is made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC-TV.